What is going on, everybody? And welcome to episode 19 of the podcast. I am here once again with the awesome Unit 522. Unit, how you doing, bro?
Doing great, man.
Good. So the movie we're reviewing in this episode is going to be 47 Meters Down, and this is going to be spoiler-free. So, Unit, got a question for you, man. When was the last time you seen this movie?
Last night, actually.
Wow.
My first time actually was my honeymoon. I was on a cruise, and we watched a bunch of shark movies. We watched 47 Meters Down, The Meg, and Sharknado all back to back. So.
Jesus. Sounds like a fun time. Also, yeah. It's funny that you would watch all those shark movies on a cruise.
That's why we watched it on the cruise.
Just don't watch Titanic, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I finished watching this movie at about 8:20, so this is about 30 minutes ago. And I'd seen it before. I've seen it a few times. I can say, though, that like this time watching it, I think I liked it more than I remembered. The first time I saw it, I thought it was really good, actually. And then I watched it a few more times, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. But I don't think I'd watched it for, like, probably a good 6 months or so. And then watching it today, like, dude, I forgot a lot of the jump scares and where the sharks were and, like, kind of what happens. And I kept getting the ending mixed up with the different parts. So rewatching it today, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot, dude, how good this movie really is. I really like it. All right, so this movie came out in 2017. Rotten Tomatoes gave this one a 54%. Okay, and then IMDb gives it a 5.6 out of 10.
Ooh, wow, that's harsh.
Yeah, it's kind of low, to be honest. I feel like it deserves more than that. You know, I definitely know that there are some issues with it, and there are some problems. But as far as the ratings go, 54%. That's not a fan. I'm not a fan of how low that number is, dude.
Me neither. I think it deserves a little bit more than that. I mean, it's not like a masterpiece of a film, but it's definitely very effective, and I think it definitely deserves more credit.
I really agree with that. This movie got a budget of $5.3 million, and it took home $62.6 million in the box office. So pretty big return. And I'll be honest,
that's a good
dude,
turnover.
When I found out this was $5.3 million for a budget, I was like pretty surprised how low that was, because you had Mandy Moore in there, and you also had what's his face, Matthew Modine was in there as well, so you got to pay for them. And on top of that, like, I thought the sharks in this movie looked really good. Like, for the most part, there were some moments where the sharks didn't look as good as they could have, but there's other times they look like real freaking sharks. You think that budget would be higher for all the CG they had to put into it.
Yeah, the CGI can be hit or miss. I think it has a lot to do with the lighting. I think when it was darker, the sharks looked better, but when there was like a lighter scene, you could tell that the sharks were definitely CGI.
I thought the sharks looked pretty good. There were definitely parts though when some looked better than the others, but I thought the stuff that looked good is when they were kind of just like swimming by, or when you saw them kind of from a distance or something, because the closer they got and the more you saw like them attack in their teeth, I think that's where we freaking lost it, was in the CGI in the mouth when they would attack.
47 Meters Down is all about suspense, and I think this film really does excel at suspense. Like, I've never been diving before or anything like that, and watching this, I don't think I want to now. It's like that kind of fear-invoking type of horror film, kind of like when you see Final Destination 3. Excuse me, Final Destination 3, misspoke there. And you already have a predisposed fear to roller coasters, and you watch that movie, and that just kind of just hits the nail right on the head, where you're like, I never want to go on another roller coaster again. It's the same type of thing with this film. It's like this, if you've never been diving before, deep sea diving, this is not the film to watch.
Well, I haven't been deep sea diving, and that's actually something I've really kind of wanted to do, to be honest. And I can do it. It's near where I live in San Francisco.
Right.
You can go great white shark diving, and like I'm down one day to try it, dude, because I'm fascinated by sharks. That's why I like shark movies so much, because I'm fascinated, dude. Like, even though Sharknado movies suck, but I still like just the appeal of a great white shark, or just sharks attacking. And you're right, dude. 47 meters down has so much suspense in it, and like I was saying, like I forgot where all of the suspense was in the movie because I hadn't seen it for so long, and
Right.
it really got me, dude. So like, bravo to that. So this movie was directed by Johannes Roberts, who actually happens to be the same director who directed The Strangers 2, Pray at Night, the movie that you and I reviewed not too long ago. He directed Strangers 2 and the sequel to this movie, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged.
Nice. So he's definitely got a lot of potential. I would like to see his. I'm not sure what other films he's done, but moving forward, I'm pretty sure he's got some good titles under his belt, and I think he definitely has the potential to be a great horror film director if he hones his craft and everything, and maybe he can have the opportunity to direct more well-known franchises like Friday the 13th, if that ever comes back, or Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that. I think specifically this director, would do well with those properties.
Yeah, I think he would. Did you see the sequel to this movie, the 47 Meters Down, Uncaged?
I have when it first came out, but I barely remember it because I think I saw it after I smoked a few. I smoked a blunt with a friend, and it happens to the best of us. You don't have to edit that out. I was inebriated when I saw it, so I don't really remember much of it.
Yeah, I watched it somewhat recently, and I didn't think it was as bad as people made it out to sound, but it definitely don't think was as good as this one. This one,
I know
was real good.
Chris Stuckman really did not like it. You know who that is?
Oh yeah, movie reviewer.
Yeah. Like I respect him, and I like his opinions, and I usually agree with him. But there are some times where he just kind of has like this. I don't know. He just snobby cinema-phile type of attitude towards certain movies, like 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. I think it was he can be a bit harsh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then he can sometimes praise movies that I found that were like garbage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's like,
I
this
was about to
movie
say
is
the
a
same
cinematic
thing.
masterpiece. Like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, like Midsommar. I think it was an interesting film, but I don't think it really has profound meaning to it. I know I'm getting off subject a little bit. It's a very well shot, very interestingly shot movie, but I just don't get the hidden messages per se. Maybe I'm just too stupid. But he was like praising Midsommar, and I'm like, it's not that great, buddy.
Yeah, he was praising it because of especially the camera work and the effects of that movie. Which I'm like, yo, if you're watching a scary movie, I don't care about special like beautiful Daisy Meadow shots. Well, actually, I'm gonna be reviewing this movie like in a week or so I'm gonna save some of my thoughts for that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
know
for
what you
sure.
mean about Chris Stuckman, and sometimes he's totally hitting the nail on the head with what I agree with and what you agree with, but sometimes we're way off. Two ships in the night.
To each his own. He has 1 million subscribers doing what he's doing, so he's doing something right.
So the plot of this movie goes like this. Two sisters vacationing in Mexico are trapped in a shark cage at the bottom of the ocean. With less than an hour of oxygen left and great white sharks circling nearby, they must fight to survive. This movie stars Mandy Moore as Lisa and Claire Holt as Kate, with Matthew Modine as Captain Taylor. So, man, let's talk a little bit of spoiler-free thoughts about Mandy Moore and Claire Holt, the sisters. What did you think of their acting?
The main character, which is Mandy Moore, right?
I would assume.
Yeah. The main character, I remember she was brunette, kind of annoying,
Yeah.
just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of a average. I don't want to say average, but just kind of like she's a bit annoying. They're on vacation, they have this sister dynamic, so it can be a bit frustrating sometimes listening to how sisters go back and forth. But really, towards the end of this movie,
Spoiler free.
yeah, I know. When shit hits the fan, I'm only speaking to the dynamic between the audience and the characters. I'm not going into any spoilers.
Okay.
Towards the end of the movie, you are very sympathetic towards this character, and you really can relate to this character. You know what I mean? Like maybe we all know somebody who's a little annoying, but we wouldn't wish them to be trapped in a cage, like at the bottom of the ocean, surrounded by great white sharks. We wouldn't wish that. I wouldn't wish that on my worst nightmare. Maybe some people deserve it, actually, but you really feel for this character, and I think this movie does a good job of like, yeah, she's kind of annoying, but like towards the end, you're like, oh my god, I hope she gets out alive. I hope she's okay. That's something I really enjoyed about this movie is the dynamic and the relation that you build with the characters of this film.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I know what you mean. Like she starts off really annoying, and once we get into spoilers, we'll really like dive into it. But she is annoying, and then midway through being underwater and trying to help her escape, like you want her to survive, even though she is still pretty annoying throughout the movie. I thought, in my opinion.
Right.
I thought the other girl, Claire Holt, I thought she did a pretty good job as well. I'd never really got the sister vibe from them. I thought they seemed more like friends. I don't know.
Yeah, I could be wrong about that.
No,
Actually.
they are sisters.
They are sisters. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like the way they acted and how it came off to me, they didn't seem like sisters. They seemed more so like friends. Like Mandy Moore was like the chicken crap friend who was like scared to do everything and be out there. And then this is the friend that likes to go out and go be spontaneous and crazy. I saw it more like a friendship dynamic than them actually pulling off that they were sisters. So let's talk about our ratings, okay? So 1 through 10. 1 is this movie sucks. How it should never been made. Number 5 is that this is a completely average movie, and 10 is that this is like one of the best movies that you've ever seen. You just love it to death. So I'm gonna let you go first this time. Last time I went first. Out of 10, what's your score?
I'm gonna give this an 8, and that has to do with my love for shark movies. I love shark movies. I probably would give it a 7, but since it's a shark movie, I'm going to bump it up another point and just give it an 8 out of 10. I don't care. I'm shameless. I'll go with it.
Okay. Hey, that's not bad, dude. And I pretty much 100% agree with you because I rated it a 7 out of 10. I didn't give it the extra bonus point because it's a shark movie. But
I think the last podcast, it was like a reverse. I gave Strangers 2 a 7 and you gave it an 8. So now the roles are reversed a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I would have given it an 8 too. I can see it being an 8. It's just there were more things that were a little frustrating in this movie than there was in like The Strangers 2 to me.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
I couldn't give it like a full 8, but I'm not saying that it couldn't be an 8 after this. If it could change my mind as we're talking about it. Sometimes that happens, but as of now, I think I'm gonna give it a 7, and I feel pretty comfortable doing that because I think it had great jump scares. It gives this really great claustrophobic feel when you're underwater, and also because these characters are low on oxygen and they're stuck at the bottom of the ocean, it really gives you that like you feel like you can't breathe like they can't. And so there's times where they're like, because they're like trying to like breathe and stuff, and you kind of feel like, because they're just like taking your breath away because you get really like into the movie and sucked into it. And so I got to give it like fat points for that. There were a few things wrong with it. Like I thought Mandy Moore's character was extremely annoying, and it wasn't so much like the character, more so it was Mandy Moore's acting. I thought she just very repetitive, basically talking out loud with how scared she is about everything. I'm so scared right now, Kate, super scared. And then another big one is that they made stupid choices while they were underwater, like really stupid choices. Like they have a little bit of oxygen and they say that over and over again. We only have this much oxygen. Oh my God, we're almost out of oxygen. And then it's like, don't talk. And then they have a moment where they're sitting down and they're like, so what do you think your ex-boyfriend would think if you were here right now? Oh, he'd probably freak out. And then they're laughing and like, I'm sorry, I got us in this position. And it's like, so for people who are very low on oxygen, you sure are talking a lot. You're wasting a lot of your time when you should just shut the F up. And honestly, I think this movie would have I probably could have given it a good 8.5 if they if they cut out 75% of the dialogue of this movie. If this would have been a lot more of just like a visual movie where you're just seeing them underwater and you're seeing the things they're doing with just a little bit of talking in between, I feel like it definitely suffered from like too much talking. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you think about that?
I think I agree with you 100%. The opening of this movie is not very strong, especially for me. Like the whole thing is, the main character, Mandy Moore's character, her boyfriend breaks up with her, and they're in Mexico, and it's just kind of like, whatever, you know. I mean, I get everybody breaks up, and you know you have to move on, but it's not really something that I like to see in a horror film. You know what I mean? Like, but I guess it is relatable, so I have mixed feelings on it. Um, but you're right. The dialogue doesn't really pan out. The chemistry between Lisa and Kate, you know, it's there. But what really sells it for me is like when shit hits the fan and you see the sharks. That
Yeah.
I love sharks, man, and it just kind of like I forget about all the stupid shit that I saw up until the sharks appear, and when they appear and the climax is happening and the suspense is going on, I just really I automatically forgive all the faults that this film has presented to me, and I'm just like, wow, this is such a great film, such a horrifying situation. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it, you know. And overall, it's a very simple movie actually, um, but the amount of suspense that the director was able to compact in this story, the how the sorry, just tongue tied myself. You can edit that part out. How the story played out was very well paced, you know, and there was something towards the end. I'm not going to spoil it right now because you said no spoilers. That really just it lifts your hopes up and then it just crushes them, and I love that. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
dude.
I don't want to delve too much into that, so I'll just leave it right there.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board with you, man. I completely agree with that. Some of the talking though that I was more so referring to was not so much the stuff in the beginning of the movie, but like there'd be moments when like one of the sisters is like, "Oh, I have to get out of the cage and I have to go do this for whatever reason." And then
Yeah.
instead of just being like, "Okay, don't talk, conserve your breath as much as you can," Mandy Moore's character is always like popping out at the mouth with things like, "Hurry up, please don't leave me down here. I'm scared. Or I thought you were never going to come back." Like she just keeps like talking, and it's honestly like, "Shut up, dude. Like you will run out of air, you moron. Like you should just know that you shouldn't be talking." But yeah, so a 7 and an 8 out of 10, that's a pretty high score. And you know, I feel like you and me have pretty credible opinions. So if you haven't seen this movie, but you've always maybe been considering it, it's a good one. It really is. And like you were saying, you hit it perfectly when you said that you can forgive any faults and stupidity that this movie has once the sharks start coming, because once they do, it's like full on high tension suspense, great shark attacks, and it's not the same type of shark attack over and over again. They have like different
Mhm.
things, and there is one specific scene involving flares and a shark that
Mhm.
just, it looks so good. And I don't want to get into that yet, but we will, promise. All right,
Mhm.
so that's going to wrap up the non-spoiler part of this podcast. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds to turn this off, and then we're getting spoiler heavy, okay? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, spoilers. So I like to start this off with asking who your favorite character and your least favorite character were of this movie.
My favorite character. That's a tough one. If I have to guess, it would probably be Captain Taylor because of the actor who plays him. He played in Full
Stranger
Metal
Things
Jacket. Uh, he also played in Transporter 2.
and
If
Stranger
I'm
Things.
Did he?
Yeah, he was Papa or whatever. He was Eleven's like dad.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, phenomenal actor. And you know, even uh, his character wasn't really in the film that much, but you know, that actor always does the character justice. Like I said, my favorite character, really, if I'm going to be honest with you, is the sharks. But I know that's not what you're talking about. If I had to pick
No,
one,
if that's your favorite, bro, that's your favorite. There's no changing that. I'm down. If you want sharks to be your
because
favorite character,
in the last podcast, I tried to pick the Man in the Mask, and you're like, oh, you can't do that.
just because they were like in their own category, because like there was like your favorite killer and then your favorite like
Yeah.
killer. But no, I kind of screwed the pooch on that
Yeah.
one. You could have picked that guy.
Okay, so screw the captain. The Sharks. I'm going with the Sharks. They're simplistic, but you know what they want, and it's horrifying what they want, and sooner or later they're gonna get to you. So
Absolutely, dude. Yes, for sure. Yeah, those sharks were great. And I would say, have you seen the movie?
close in.
Have you seen the movie The Shallows? No, no,
No,
yeah, The Shallows.
I have not seen The Shallows.
Wow, for a huge shark lover, dude,
I know,
that is
man.
a great one.
That has been on my list for a while. I don't know, just bad luck has happened. I've seen every other one except that one.
Dude, that's one of the best, definitely. And the shark in that movie looks the most realistic out of any shark movie I've ever seen. This one is second to me because I thought the sharks looked pretty good. Out of 100% of the time that you see them, I would say about 70% of the time they looked like perfect. And then there was like 30% where sometimes they were questionable. Yeah.
I'll go off on a side tangent really quick if
Sure.
you'll allow me.
Yes, I will.
The reason I love this film so much is because it reminds me of the very first shark movie I've ever seen, and it's not Jaws. Jaws is a timeless classic. I've seen it a million times, but it was not the first. It was not the first shark movie I've ever seen. It was Deep Blue Sea. That was actually my very first one, and dude, that fucking movie just terrified me as a kid. It was like back in 2000 that it came out, or 1999. And I saw it at my dad's house, and I remember like Samuel L. Jackson just saying, "We're gonna pull it together, and we're gonna get out of here." And the shark just comes up behind him and just closes in.
We're not gonna fight anymore.
Yeah, exactly. This movie, for some reason, it reminds me so much of Deep Blue Sea, and the stories are way different. And LL Cool J is sadly not in this movie.
He should be. He should be.
And with his ending song, like even if LL Cool J was not in this movie, they still should have ended this movie with a timeless classic, "My Hat Is Like a Shark's Fin." I would have loved that song to be at the end of this movie. And I'm not making that up. Anybody who's watching this podcast, when you're done watching it, look up "My Hat Is Like a Shark's Fin." That was an actual song by LL Cool J. He actually wrote that, recorded that, and put that in a movie. And it's just phenomenal. It is phenomenal how well that song has aged. You know?
Yeah.
I wonder what he thinks looking back on that. Like, man, that was like I thought at the time that was the high point of my career, but it's actually, looking back on it, it is so embarrassing that I wrote a song like that. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's probably embarrassing, but he probably got paid handsomely to write that song.
Yeah, then he remembers the millions of dollars he got paid, and it's all good. Anyway, getting back to the movie, I don't know, man. I just have this profound love for just sharks, like eating people, and I don't know. There's just something about sharks that just intrigue me, I guess. I consider them 10 times more scarier than something like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, especially when you're in their element, like on a boat out at sea fishing or something, and sharks are circling you. That'd be the most, like, let me run from Michael Myers as opposed to dealing with that shit. You know what I mean?
Or have you seen Open Waters? Or Open Water?
Yes, I have seen that one.
Yeah, that's not like a great movie to me, but it's still like just the idea of being trapped in the water and you don't know what's underneath you.
It's a scary situation for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you would not want to be in that situation.
So who did you say your least favorite character was?
My least favorite character, I would have to go with the main character, Lisa, just because of how annoying she is, and she does most of the stupid dialogue in the when the shit's hitting the fan, and they're in that cage below the sea, and she just keeps talking, and it's just like, really? I mean, it kind of pulls you out a little bit, but the situation alone is just terrifying enough for you to forgive that. But still, it's kind of annoying. Like I could see somebody who's less forgiving, like Chris Tuckman, for example. He would be saying something like, "Yeah, it really takes you out of the experience," and that's probably not how you would react in a situation like that. But to be fair, you really don't know how you would react until you're in that situation. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, just because of how annoying she is, I'm just gonna pick Mandy Moore's character, Lisa. She seems to make the dumbest choices. Uh, Her sister Kate is a little bit more redeemable because she actually like she's the one trying to hold it together, and she's the one who risks her life. It doesn't work out, but she's the one who swims out of that cage to try to get to the surface. I mean, so automatically kudos right there. Um, Very stupid thing to do, but god damn, you have some balls if you're gonna do that. No,
Well,
I would not go out of that cage for nothing. I would rather just like, I don't know, suffocate from lack of oxygen than get torn apart by a shark.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And kind of just to keep going off what you were saying, my favorite character is Kate, which is Claire Holt. And you pretty much were saying everything I was going to say, because she is the one that is more adventurous, and she's the one that, like, when stuff hits the fan, she's the one who goes into action. So yeah, when Kate left the cage, it was like she just got into action and she was ready to go. And Mandy Moore's character is just sitting off to the side, like, I'm so scared, Kate. I'm so scared. Oh my God, we're gonna die down here. And she was like, look, we have to like save ourselves. And so when she leaves the cage and she goes to go swim to the surface, like you were saying, she couldn't even get out of the cage because like that lever or that mechanism or whatever also fell down with them into the water, and it like pinned them in. And
Mhm.
in order for them to get that off, she had to like go through the bars to get out of that cage to climb onto the top to get that big metal piece off. And she wouldn't fit, so she took her oxygen tank off, and then that wouldn't fit with the mask off. And there's the moment where she has to take her mask off, dude, and then like put it back on underwater. And like that, dude, that part was so like intense, because you're like, oh my God, she could drown right now. And not only that, but there could be a shark around her at any moment. But then she like finally gets the wedge off, and then she like goes up to the surface, and then that's when she gets like attacked by sharks and stuff. And like she's just like the one though that goes out and like handles the business, while Mandy Moore's character Lisa is just underwater, just being like a crybaby pretty much. And so then that also leads into my least favorite character, which is totally Mandy Moore's character, Lisa. I can't
Right.
stand her character, and I'm pretty sure you can get that by now.
Yeah. But at the same time, you still sympathize with this character and you want to see this character um, survive the situation, because this is a very it, it's akin to something like Final Destination, where there's actually layers to the intensity and the suspense to the situation. First of all, it's you're down at how many meters? 47 meters below.
Yeah.
Duh.
Duh.
Um, you're down 47 meters in a cage. That's scary on its own, right? So the cage malfunctions. Your comms are down. You're surrounded by sharks, and you're running low on oxygen. Right there, the four things happening in a sequence that just uh, pour the fear on really thick. You know what I mean? So, and it's just like this situation is just like insane. So it kind of it's so powerful that it overshadows any qualms or flaws that the character has, and you really just forget about that, and you just kind of like put yourself in that situation. That's what this movie makes you do. It makes you like visualize, oh wow, what would I do, and like what if I was 47 meters down surrounded by sharks. That's how I felt about this movie anyway.
Well, what would you do then? Because that's a good thing you just brought up. So if this was you, what would you do? Let's say you and me were like, hey, dude, let's go see some great whites one day. And then we end up in this situation. Because I can tell you what I would do. What would you do?
I would stay put. I would accept that I would suffocate from oxygen. I would probably have to make peace with that. And the only reason that I would be able to successfully maintain a calm demeanor is because I'd rather suffocate than be ripped apart by sharks. And I am not getting out of that cage and swimming up to the surface. You have lost your mind. No. I'd probably die, to be honest with you. But you couldn't pay me enough money to get in a little rusty ass cage and go down 47 meters, especially like these the tour guides that they were with weren't like really professionals, if I'm remembering this correctly. Like it was, yeah, they could do it, but they're not like, professional, especially with that busted ass cage that they were hauling around in their little tugboat. There's
And
no way in
they
hell.
even mention when one of the girls is when they bring up the idea, like, do you guys want to go see sharks or whatever? One of the girls, Mandy Moore, obviously, she's like, well, don't you have to be like licensed for that? And they like laugh and they're like, no, this is Mexico. Like, you don't need any of that crap. Like, you just go out there. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
sadly enough, like I could see that happening in Mexico, believe it or not. But like, if I was going to do that, not saying I would, it would probably be off the shores of America, because you could get in a lot of trouble for doing that kind of stuff in America, because there's like our legal system, lawsuits and everything like that. In Mexico, that's not really a priority there. I'm not saying Mexico's
right.
like completely unregulated, but more stuff like that you can get away with in Mexico than you can in America. And the red tape is there for a reason. Just like you can't rush a coronavirus vaccine, you really have to have the right equipment if you're going to be putting a cage 47 meters down into a giant body of water full of sharks. Like, if you're going to do it, you have to have your shit in order. You can't have that one cable that they were using and having like it snapped, right? And
Yeah.
there was almost like no fail safes at all. And that just makes me think, like, if I was going to do this, it would have to be with like a credible type of organization that specializes in stuff like this. Maybe that's like a underlining message of this movie.
Yeah, you don't just go because it's like a Saturday. You're like, yeah, let's just go see great whites. Like, you need to have like an event scheduled where this is like a business that does this. I totally agree with you, dude.
My friend has a chicken cage that's enough to house a human, and we can dunk you in some water full of sharks.
Yeah, that sounds
idea.
good.
Not a good idea.
All right, so yeah, and then my least favorite is Mandy Moore. She sucks. I totally know what you mean about, like, she has redeeming qualities and you want her to live, but I more so just like want her to live because she's just a human. But everything she does throughout was really frustrating until they get towards the end of the movie. Then she starts getting like majorly effed up when she like cuts her hand on the harpoon blade. She also has to like peel the skin off of her leg as she pulls it from underneath the cage towards the end. And like, so she definitely gets jacked up, or what you think is jacked up until you find out that it was all an illusion. But yeah, she's definitely like my least favorite so far.
And that's another layer of suspense. Like, everybody knows with sharks, blood coming out of you is not good. Not good, because they smell the blood and they come right at you.
Oh, for sure.
So whenever blood was present, like you mentioned the scene where she cuts her hand and the blood's coming out, like that scene terrified me, because I'm like, oh my God, sharks are attracted to blood. Here they come. Like, holy fuck. And yeah, that scene towards the very end that you were talking about, where the oxygen was running low and she was hallucinating and stuff like that, and like, oh my God, I kind of knew it was an illusion because one of the sharks actually bit her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, she makes it to the surface and she gets on the boat, but I'm like, if a shark were to attack you in that way, they would probably like latch onto you and drag you like further down and then just tear you apart. It just didn't seem realistic. I mean, it was very intense, but I'm like, if you got bit by a shark underwater that low, I don't think it would play out that way to where you would make it up to the surface with all your limbs. You have a big chunk missing from you, but you still have all your limbs and you're still mobile. That's not how shark attacks are usually played out. So I was like, yeah, this is a movie, but I think I got the sense that it wasn't real, because we were already one of the characters, I forget who, mentioned I think it was the captain. He mentioned that you could hallucinate if your oxygen ran low enough.
Well, it's more so when they switch the oxygen tanks like underwater, like you can get too much nitrogen or
Yeah,
whatever in
yeah,
your brain.
exactly. That's
And
what I meant to say.
yeah, yeah. And then like because of that you might hallucinate. And honestly, the first time I saw this movie when he said that, I just thought that was something he was just saying. I never even put two and two together. So when it was the big reveal at the end that she actually was still underneath the water and she was just hallucinating, it completely got me. I had no idea that was coming by any means, dude. Now I
Yeah,
totally see it, but the very first time, no, it totally got me.
yeah, for sure. Like the first time, it kind of like I kind of had an inkling that it was an illusion, but it still like devastated me because you know I didn't know her sister was actually dead. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like because during her hallucination, she finds her sister, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, she survived, and that's great. But then you figure out that that wasn't the case.
Oh yeah, not only is her sister not alive, but Mandy Moore's also not already on the boat. She's still underneath the water. And it's so funny that we're just like jumping straight to the end when there's so much
I
like
know,
juicy
right?
stuff in the middle, but at the end finally like you can hear Captain Taylor and he's saying like, you know, the Coast Guard they're on their way down right now. And then you see a few of them come down with like harpoon guns and stuff. It's funny how they didn't get attacked when
Yeah.
everybody else in the world did, but they come down and they save her and everything's okay. She like lives. Her sister did die, but she's like okay. I kind of
Mhm.
feel like they should have just left it to where the reveal is that Mandy Moore is still underneath the water and then like end the movie there. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's just doomed
Yeah.
and she just
That,
dies instead of having the happy ending of her living.
that would have been too dark, I think. Like the studio stepped in and was like, you gotta have a happy ending somewhat.
I
I would have
get
ended
that, but
I
why
would have ended
though?
the movie like that too. That would have been great. Just
Why
like hope.
I like when movies like end edgy, you know, and
Yeah,
like
for
dark.
sure.
Like you remember are you a fan of those Avengers movies?
Of course.
Did you see the Infinity War then? Not Endgame, but Infinity War.
Yes.
So you know how at the end of it, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen that by now, but like Thanos snaps his finger, then like he sits down and he relaxes, like I accomplished what I was out to do, and then the movie
Yeah.
ends. It doesn't end on like a good positive hero winning the day type of ending, and in that movie it pissed me off because I didn't know that was gonna it was gonna end that way, but in this I feel like some movies need to end with like that sour, depressing, like oh man, everything's not okay sometimes kind of thing.
Well, there was a scene after that where Captain Marvel gets called by Nick Fury.
Was that
So there was
Infinity
like
War?
that.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you're right. When
that
he's
was
with
Infinity War,
yeah, you're right.
and that's kind of like the inkling that this isn't over yet. Captain Marvel is gonna come and kick Thanos' ass or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just I guess I'm saying I want some movies to take a chance on not ending positively sometimes. It's just everything always has to be like a nice little bow wrapped on top
Yeah,
of it.
I
Like,
get
oh,
what
it's
you're
all
saying,
done.
and
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, especially with a movie like this. Like, it would it would just be so perfect to get your hopes up. It was all hallucination, and she ends up dying at the bottom of the ocean.
And her sister's dead. Like they just die. Dude, there's like a movie coming to my mind right now where it's like all of them die, like all of the one good example is the movie Cloverfield. Are you a fan of that one?
Which one are we talking about?
The original one, the first one.
The found footage one. Yeah,
Yeah, where they're like in New York and they're running through the streets and stuff.
it's been a while since I've seen that, but I loved it when I saw it. Like I first saw it back when I was in high school. I think it was a senior, and I watched that movie because I was such an introvert with no friends, and all I would do is go to Blockbuster and then come home.
Aw.
And then on Friday nights, I would just binge watch movies. And Cloverfield definitely stood out to me because if anybody doesn't remember Blockbuster, there would be these films, right, that you had never heard of, and they would suck so bad. They were just made to like. It had a really cool cover, like Satan's Little Helper has an awesome cover.
Yeah.
But when you watch that movie, it's just like, what the fuck did I just watch? But
Yeah, dude,
yeah,
that's what you did when you would go to this old town place called Blockbuster. You would walk up and down the aisles and you would look at movie covers. And then if the cover looked good enough, you'd pick it up and you'd check this out. You'd flip it over and there'd be more pictures on the back. And
and
you're
I
like,
went
you know,
through a
this looks
found
good.
footage craze too.
Yeah, dude, I love found footage. It's actually my favorite style of horror, to be honest. It's the most jump scary to me, and that's my type of horror is jump scares, which is why I like this movie because it's got a lot of suspense. But my point is that Cloverfield ends depressingly. It's not the
Yeah.
happy ending that you might think it's going to be. And so this movie kind of reminded me of that, and that movie reminded me of this about how not everything would end happy, and that's kind of how I wanted this to end. But it's okay. It's all good. But now that we've pretty much covered the entire end of the movie, I kind of want to do the beginning a little bit, which is like you were already kind of going into it. But Claire Holt, Mandy Moore, they're sisters that go to Mexico because Mandy Moore lied to her sister and said that her boyfriend had to go work. And so she wanted someone to go with her to Mexico. So they went. And while they're there in Mexico, Mandy Moore admits that actually her boyfriend, Stuart, dumped her because she's too boring and she's not spontaneous enough. And so that's kind of like what ends up getting them into the water is that they meet these like two Mexican dudes, which I kind of want to comment on this because I thought about something while I was there. So they meet these two guys and they go out at like 10:30 or 11 at night. And they meet these two guys and they're drinking and they're dancing, having a good time. And then they spend like the entire night with these two guys. They don't hook up or anything. They're not even like making out. They're just like together with them all night. They go to the ocean, they're on the beach and stuff. And then the day ends and like they didn't like hook up. I'm not I'm not trying to say like you can't not hook up with someone, but like it's not like they're meeting these guys and like building a relationship with them. Like these dudes live in Mexico. They're on vacation. Like you're not going to start dating these guys. Like why don't you just meet up at the club, get hammered, go to the beach, screw, and then that's it. That's part of your vacation.
Wasn't one of the guys knew the captain who had the cage to go into the water and see the sharks?
Yeah, I think
Wasn't it?
both of them did.
That is why those characters are there to establish that connection.
Yeah,
It
but you, don't
doesn't
you
have
think
to
you'd
make
see him hooking
sense.
up though at some point? Like you'd see like especially the crazy sister, like they go hook up, and Mandy Moore's like, I don't want to, but she's like, well, when in Mexico, and they like hook up, but
I
they don't.
guess. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I kind of that's where my mind went when I was watching it, but
And maybe
yeah,
you wanted to see them hook up. I didn't
well,
really care.
yeah, why not?
I
Um,
guess that probably would have made more sense actually.
so anyways,
Because
so
you're gonna go dance and party in Mexico. Come on, we all know what goes on, right?
right, don't drink the worm or eat the worm, whatever. Okay, so then they end up getting convinced to go on this rinky-dink ship with Captain Taylor. They go into this cage. They're throwing all this chum into the water to bring the great whites, and you can see them from like an aerial point of view, kind of underneath the water. And they're like, "Oh my god, look how big it is!" And dude, like the first time you see one, you're like, "Oh crap, these things are big, dude! Like these are like underwater beasts, man. These things are nothing to mess with." Uh,
Right.
there was one part that was like really frustrating me during this, and it's the one of the crew help or somebody who's on the boat with the captain. He's just like this irritating dude that's like, oh yeah, you know the sharks like it and they want to come up and take a bite out of you, you know. And it's like, okay, dude, like relax. Like, do you know what character I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what character you're talking about. It was like a more annoying version of they were trying to do something like in Jaws, but instead of like the captain in Jaws where he's just like, I hung great whites, like like that character was awesome, but they try
Yeah,
to do something like that in this film, and it was just like I think they went out of their way. We're gonna introduce a character like that, but we're gonna make him really fucking annoying.
and he's insignificant to the story, unlike the captain
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Jaws. And
Yeah,
it's
it was
he
just
was
kind of
all
like the polar opposite of what they were trying in Jaws. It's just like, let's just make a bastard version of this guy.
yeah, he was also like it seemed like he was being like rude to the girls. Like Mandy Moore is clearly like having almost a panic attack because she's like nervous about going in and stuff. And instead of being like, it's okay, you're gonna be all right. Like we do this thousands of times. Like that guy is like hecka egging her on. He's like, oh, are you scared right now? And she's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you should be. But yeah, you know. And it's just like, okay, what's your problem, dude? Why are you like picking on these girls? Like I know maybe
Yeah.
he's supposed to be a funny character, but I found him just very annoying. But eventually they get in the water, and it's pretty awesome the first time you see the sharks, and that's what I mean by how good those sharks looked. And then eventually, like, they're like, okay, we're done, like, let's go back up. And as they're going up, the tank, or wherever they are, like the steel barred cage that they're in, it like breaks off with the lever and it falls to the bottom, and that's how they end up getting trapped at the bottom. And then you find out how much air they have, how much oxygen they have, which is not much at all. And then, like you said, in order to get to the top of the ocean, Kate has to get out and swim into the middle of nowhere. Basically, she's in the middle of like the dark ocean, trying to get a signal. And like, dude, that whole time, like, it is so terrifying. And like, I've said this once before. I know I've said this once before in a conversation with somebody, but one thing that like I really love about shark movies, which is why they're so good and scary to me, is that there's lots of times where you don't know what's around you because it's so black, and they can come from anywhere. It's not like when you watch a scary movie and you're standing in the front of the woods and there's like the main character standing there, and you can see off in the woods in the background like somebody watching them. Like, you can't do that with a shark movie. You can't see far into the background in a shark movie. You can only see what's in front of your face, basically. So it's like there's even that one scare when I think it's Mandy Moore or one of them goes up into the middle of nowhere to try and get a reception again, and that's when that shark comes out of nowhere and just like bites at her, which is like the first real jump scare. Like, dude, that made me jump. Heck,
Are you talking about, or maybe it's a separate scene where the flare comes up, and then as soon as she ignites the flare, you can see 3 of those motherfuckers around,
ready to bite them?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not the scene I'm talking about, because that's more towards when they're about to escape. But I'm just talking about they're trying to get a signal, and that's when that shark comes like out of nowhere from the darkness.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's another effective scene. Like, it's okay. Like, jump scares, like we've talked about jump scares before. I'm not opposed to jump scares at all, but jump scares work great in shark movies. It's almost like required in shark movies, just because of the setting, just because of the situation, the sea. Just jump scares and great white sharks go hand in hand. They complement each other perfectly, like mashed potatoes and gravy.
No, they really do, because that's the thing, is that you don't know where they're coming from, so they're really effective. And you can't just build up when you think a shark attack is going to happen like you can in other movies, because you don't know when it's going to happen. So total suspense in shark movies, I would agree. I think almost any creature feature film, whether it be like Lake Placid or The Meg or this one, like whenever you have some sort of creature that can just jump out of like nowhere, I think that's when you're really good for jump scares. Like, see, I don't know what else I want to talk about. Because we kind of like, I really wanted to spend a lot of the time on the ending, which we did.
Well, like I said, it's not a very complex story. You know, it's a very simple story, but it's very effective at what it does. Like, the character chemistry is off. Like, I don't really relate to the main character, just like in the last movie we talked about, Strangers Pray at Night. Can't really relate to her, but I'm not a woman with these types of problems and relationship problems in general. Like what the main character was going through in this film. My entire life, I've always been a take it or leave it kind of guy. If you don't like me, you don't like me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on. You know, there's no point of wasting my time working on something that's just not gonna work. And if the boyfriend left her because he thought that she was too boring, then you know what? Like, if I was her, then fuck him, right? I'm not gonna be sad over that. Like, fuck you. You didn't like me. Well, you know something? I don't like you either. But that's why I can't relate to relationship problems of that, like, you know, like serious relationship problems where the husband is cheating and or the wife is cheating, or there's like something wrong with one of your kids and it's tearing the family apart. Obviously, I could relate to something like that. But like something like, oh, this guy dumped me because he thought I was boring. Like, I can't relate to something like that. So it was kind of an uphill battle getting through. First time watching this, it was an uphill battle getting through the first 30 minutes of this film, because I'm just like, and then the shit hits the fan. And like I said earlier in this podcast, you forget about all of that. It becomes insignificant. It was just build up for what was to come. The real magic of this movie is in its second and third act, especially in the third act. And that scene that we went over with, where you thought she was out and then that she's not, it was all a hallucination. Um, we wish it would have ended better, or more of a hopeless ending per se.
Yeah.
But how it played out isn't bad, you know.
No.
It definitely does the job of terrifying you, of uh, increasing the suspense. And this movie, I have to compliment this movie that this director knows, just like within Strangers Part 2, this guy knows really how to pick his moments. And his films aren't perfect, but you can tell that this guy really knows how to perpetuate the fear. You know what I mean? Like he knows lighting, he knows angles, he knows what he wants, and he knows how to execute it to where you feel a certain type of way. Like, if that makes sense. I hope people aren't confused by that.
No, it makes sense to me completely. He does. He knows how to, like, he knows when the moments need to be significant. Like, so let's just talk about that scene. Like when the captain drops down like some new oxygen tanks, so that way the girls can breathe underwater. And when they hit the floor and they finally retrieve the oxygen tanks, there's also like 3 flares that they sent down with them. And so when the sisters are like going up towards the surface and they have their flares and they're kind of like fighting off sharks with them, and then they have that one scene where they strike the flare and then like everything underwater turns red and you just see 3 great whites like all mouths open ready to like attack the girls. And dude, that moment right there, if you just like pause it and just take a screenshot of that, it just is such an awesome picture. And that's like a great moment. And then right after that, immediately that's when the Captain Taylor, he's even like yelling as the music is like swelling, and he's like, go, just go, you know. And the girls are just like swimming as fast as they can to the top of the surface, and that whole moment you're just holding your breath. So you're like, oh my god. And then they finally get to the top, and there's like this moment where you see them and they're like breathing like fresh air, not oxygen from a tank, you know. And you're like, oh my god, they made it, like they're not going to suffocate anymore. And then like right underneath that's when the shark comes and he freaking pulls down hit the sister Kate. He pulls her down and then like finally lets go of her, and then they start getting pulled up into the boat, and that's when that shark jumps out of the water and grabs Mandy Moore by the by like the stomach area and brings her in. Dude, when that shark jumped out of the water the first time I saw this, and you got to remember this was like 3 years ago, so CGI has also improved since then. But
Yeah,
the very first time I saw it, I was just like, Jesus, that looks like some stock footage of an actual like shark that they had to somehow paste into the video because it looks so real.
Yeah, for sure. But dude, yeah, this movie, like I said, it's we can't really get into too much because there's like the plot is very simple. The appeal of this movie is where it makes you put yourself in that situation and how terrified you would be. It really brings out that primal fear within you, and it just makes you not want to go into a cage and drop into the ocean and look at some sharks. It really just, it's not a very good advertisement for stuff like that. But, you know, there's always going to be people doing that sort of shit. Just like the people who jump out of planes. There's always going to be that crazy motherfucker jumping out of a plane with a parachute. I'm not going to do it. But there's always going to be people going into the ocean, diving into the ocean, wanting to see wildlife and stuff like that. There's always going to be people like that. I would say like this director or somebody else needs to take notes and kind of do like something like this, like applied to maybe a trip up Mount Everest. Or I could see a good suspenseful horror film about that, or maybe another mountain where instead of sharks, it's like bears. Like, because have you ever seen like I forget what movie it is, but Leonardo DiCaprio gets attacked by a bear, and it's like super uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, The Revenant.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for reminding me. Just like I think this formula 47 meters down has presented could be applied to stuff like I said, a mountain trip, or maybe a ski resort where they all get snowed in, and polar bears or something else, maybe a supernatural creature. I don't know. I think it's a good formula that can be applied to other things, and you would get the same type of suspense, probably the same simplistic story. But I feel like a broken record. But it's a good it's a good situation for horror films, and horror films are known for their simplicity. But it's one of the most popular genres in all of movies for a reason. And 47 Meters Down just illustrates where you can take a simple concept and turn it into something profound.
Yeah, and you can pretty much do anything with it. There's like endless stories you can do with shark movies. You know, like ultimately, yeah, they're all going to take place underwater. But like, think of this movie, think of Deep Blue Sea, think about The Meg. You know, like those are 3 shark movies underwater. Yet there's 3 very different movies. One's about research on sharks. One is about a megalodon that they thought was prehistoric that still lives. And then you have this one right here where 2 girls get trapped cage diving. Like 3 completely different stories, all involving the same antagonist, pretty much. And like that's genius and that's awesome. That's why shark movies are always going to be awesome and thrilling. And I can't believe that you haven't seen The Shallows, bro.
I know, man. I know. You brought up my Achilles heel. You got me, man.
Oh man,
I have so many movies. I've been getting me and my tattoo artist, we talk about movies all the time, and he recommends me so many movies, and I forget the ones that I had on my other list before I met him. And one of the movies was The Shallows. So
yeah,
I got to get around to seeing that. It's just I'm kind of like in a psychological sci-fi type of vibe, like movies like Mandy with Nicolas Cage, or if I start going off, like Ghost in the Machine, stuff like that. Ghost in the Shell, I meant to say. Movies like that. I'm kind of like on a sci-fi, psychological, cyberpunk craze right now. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Let me know.
I actually saw the other day Underwater.
My friend has been telling me to watch that like every day. You see Underwater yet?
Yeah, and that's kind of a similar movie to this one, but it's sci-fi, and it's kind of the same type of suspense that you would find in a movie like this one, except that it's not sharks. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely I have to watch The Shallows. That's the bottom line. I'll get to that eventually someday.
Yeah. That movie's like even older than this one. That's 2016.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, 4 years ago, bro. Yeah, you definitely got to see it. Everybody who hasn't seen that movie has to see that movie too. It's worth it, dude. It's a really good one.
How similar is it to this film?
Extremely different.
Oh, really?
Extremely. Yeah. It's basically it's just like a one-person movie. It stars Blake Lively, and she just gets attacked by the shark, and so she's like stuck on this rock in the middle of like the ocean with a shark that like surrounds the rock, and she's like bleeding out.
And so it's like kind of like a more morbid version of Castaway with Tom Hanks,
or a more morbid version of Buried with Ryan Reynolds.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
which is actually her husband.
I like this kind of film, so I'll definitely check it out.
Oh, you'll love it, bro. I swear to God, you will. Yeah, dude. I don't honestly, like you were saying, there's not much more story to talk about with this movie. It's more so like if you just want to address all the jump scares, which, I mean, you see one, you've seen them all. Like I liked when the shark would stick its like nose into crevices, like when they're hiding from it, or it was trying to break into the cage, because like you just have that moment where like that beast is just like it's ripping at you, and you're right there, backing up against a wall, and you can't like get away from it. That was scary. All the times where it would like jump out of nowhere, that was scary. I was completely surprised, even though it was fake, that the sister just got like destroyed like that. You know, because if you're gonna talk about this in the sense where like you don't know that it's a reveal that it's a hallucination yet, then in the movie, I actually thought the sister died from. Oh no, she did actually die. Yeah, she did die. Yeah, that is how she died. That wasn't a hallucination. I'm sorry, I was getting that wrong. Yeah, she actually died in that way, and I did not expect that, especially because she was like the survivalist one, like
that's probably why they didn't end the movie in that hopeless way, because they already like killed off the sister, so they're like, okay, well, we'll let the main character live because we did that. You know, the average audience doesn't want to see a hopeless ending.
Right, and in the beginning of the movie, one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is not a huge deal, but it just kind of like annoyed me a little bit. And Deep Blue Sea did this too. Also, in the beginning of their movie, there's a. It starts off basically like you see underneath the water, and then you can see like looking up towards the surface of the water that somebody is on like a floaty raft, and obviously they're in a pool, but it looks like they're in the ocean at the moment. And you see like the camera coming up to them like they were Jaws or something, and you see that
Hmm.
it's like somebody, and they knock over the person, and the cup of wine that the person on the float is holding falls over and spills into the water, and it looks like red blood in the water, and it's like, ooh, creepy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like the opening scene, right?
yeah, it's like the very opening scene, and it's like, look, sharks don't come after red stuff in the water. Like they come after the smell of the blood. So for
Mm.
you to knock it over, like I know you're probably just trying to like symbolize blood and stuff, but like it was a little like I don't know, dude. Because it's like Deep Blue Sea did the same thing when like in the very opening when those like people are on the raft partying. Do you remember that
Yeah.
scene in Deep Blue Sea? And they accidentally knock over a bottle of wine and it like pours into the water, and then like some deep ominous music comes in. It's like, guys, this isn't like attracting sharks. It's wine. It's not blood. It just looks like blood, but they don't see it. They smell it. So
Uh,
like I don't know.
it was probably used as some kind of like foreshadowing device. What I would like to see is like maybe this has happened, like somebody who's an expert on shark behavior,
Yeah.
like kind of react to certain scenes in this movie just to see how accurate they are,
Oh
because
right. Yeah.
sharks don't actively try to, I don't know, I guess they can hunt you, but I don't think they're as morbid as they're portrayed in movies. They are animals after all, and they are just, you know, doing their natural thing, hunting and, looking for food and stuff like that. um, I've heard somewhere, not with sharks, but with gators, when they actually get a hold of like a human limb and tear it off, and they find out that they're chewing on like a human body part, they actually spit it out because they don't like it.
Oh wow.
Because they attack you on pure instinct, but when they actually get a hold of your meat and tissue, they don't like it because it's not really what they prefer to eat, I guess.
Right.
Um, like I said, I love sharks. I love shark movies, but I am not a shark expert whatsoever. So I would like to see how the behavior of these sharks in 47 meters down lines up to how they actually are. Um, I don't think sharks are evil creatures that go around hunting humans. I don't think they have that capacity to do that. But I think to make a good shark movie, you do have to demonize them a little bit. That's just the
Oh
name of the
yeah.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And I think it's funny we keep talking about Deep Blue Sea, but I feel like Deep Blue Sea did it perfectly because they, for some reason, decided not to go down the avenue of starring great white sharks in the movie. You know,
Oh
like
yeah, those were like mutated,
no, those
experimented
are
on.
actual no, those are an actual shark. It's called a mako shark. And I looked it up because I actually was funny. I was getting into an argument with Being Scared, my cousin, about what kind of sharks they were, and I was convinced they were great whites, and he was like, "Dude, I'm pretty sure they're not great whites," and I'm like, "Yes, they are." And then I
I was
finally like,
talking about like the what they were doing to those sharks in that movie. They were
yeah,
like experimenting on them, right?
yeah. Well, they were trying to cure Alzheimer, and so they were actually making like their brain super smart. So they basically created like super smart sharks.
Right.
But as far
I
as the
always thought that.
physical look, it was
Yeah.
the reason why they use a mako shark is because if you look it up, their teeth and stuff look like barbed wire pretty much. Like they look terrifying. And I all this time I thought Deep Blue Sea was just the CGI, like they made it look scary. I didn't realize that it's an actual shark that looks that terrifying. I think they need to make way more movies with mako sharks over great whites because great
Yeah, for
whites
sure.
don't
I've
any.
always thought they were. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. I didn't know what kind of shark it was. When you see a shark, they automatically think, "Oh, great white," but not all sharks are great whites. So that's an
Yeah.
interesting point that you brought up.
Yeah, I just watched Deep Blue Sea. Like my daughter right now, she's turning 3 tomorrow, actually on the 6th, or technically for you it'd be right now, but for me it's in a few hours. And she turns 3, and she is like obsessed with shark flicks right now. She's like shark movies. She wanted to see Crawl with the alligator. She likes movies like that. We watched Jurassic Park the other day. She likes monsters that like eat people.
Got a good head
Yeah.
on her shoulders. Got good taste so far.
She got a good dad. That's what she's got. She got a dad
Yeah.
that my wife is like, don't let her watch that because my daughter wakes up like every morning. She's like, ah. And we're like, what's wrong? She's like, this zombie's trying to eat me. Like, shouldn't let her watch Walking Dead, I guess. But yeah, dude.
It's a different age we live in. Like kids are used to stuff like that nowadays.
Yeah, dude, not so sheltered like we all probably were. But yeah, dude, so I don't really have much more on this except I can just say that this movie is a really, really fun time.
Yeah.
It's definitely was better than I thought it was going to be when I saw the trailers for it years ago. It's scarier than I thought, and I think here's the crappy part about horror movies is that when you watch like a good drama or even a good comedy, you can watch those over and over again and still love them every single time because it's like so much to watch. But when you watch a good scary movie, if there's a lot of jump scares in it, it's not as good the second or third time you watch it because you know like all the jump scares that are coming. And so it's not as good. And so horror movies kind of lose that rewatchability. And so I've probably seen this movie maybe like 6 times, I'd say. And it definitely scared me a lot. Well, not scared me, but made me jump a lot the first time I saw it. And then I knew where the jumps were coming like the second, third, and fourth time. And then this time that I watched it today, hadn't seen it for a while, and so like those jump scares were really effective again. So I feel like if you just like give this movie some time in between viewings, it does have that rewatchability value to it, which is
that's what I was about to say. Like I've only seen this movie twice, and if I was gonna watch it again, it wouldn't be till like years from now.
Yeah, right. Totally. Is there any final thoughts you want to say about this movie before we wrap it up?
I pretty much summed up all of my thoughts on the movie, but I'll give final words if I may.
Final thoughts with Jerry. Jerry's
my
final
hat
thoughts.
Is like a shark's fin.
Dude, every time we podcast, you should end it with like a quote.
Yeah.
Last time you were like, we shouldn't be here.
Okay, I'll give a commentary on the movie. It should have ended with the LL Cool J song, "My Hat Is Like a Shark's Fin." That's the only thing missing from this movie is LL Cool J cameo or that song. I would have taken either.
Bro, Deep Blue Sea crossover with this movie. You can get Thomas Jane.
Bring back the cook. Have that little parrot that he had.
Oh, that bird got
Thomas
eaten, dude.
Jane. We're talking about LL Cool J, one of the greatest rap artists of all time.
Yeah, Tupac who, right?
Right. The thing about LL Cool J, he actually appeared in Halloween H2O too.
Oh,
around the same time. Yeah, he was in Halloween H2O. Like, I guess there was like a period of his career that he was appearing in horror films, and Halloween H2O and Deep Blue Sea, I guess, were the two that I know about. But any horror film with LL Cool J, it gets a few extra bounty points in my book.
All right, well, I'll keep an eye out for all the horror movies that star that guy or has him in it at least. My final thoughts about this movie is that when it comes to shark movies, if I'm going to kind of like rate them on a scale, I would say this one is on par with The Shallows, and both of those movies are like one notch below Deep Blue Sea to me. And then above Deep Blue Sea is Jaws.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would get behind that for sure.
And I would put Meg behind this as well. Behind this. I think The Meg is worse than this movie.
Oh, I would have to disagree there. I think The Meg is a little bit better than this movie.
Well, then maybe we should cover The Meg because I don't agree with that. I think The Meg was fun. I don't think it's as good as this movie.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to talk about that some other time because I like Jason Statham movies. I got to be honest with you. I like Safe. I like Transporter. I like The Mechanic. I don't know. I guess I have a weakness for Jason Statham, and his action scenes are just, oh man, like he's ruthless.
And his towel scenes. Can't forget about that, man. You can't have a Jason Statham movie without him being in a towel, showing off his abs.
But another thing, one thing before we wrap it up, I actually like a lot of people hate this guy, and I understand. But Steven Seagal is definitely one of my favorite I don't know. There's just something about his movies. He plays the same. He can't act worth a shit. He plays the same character in each of the films. But some of his earlier stuff, man, it's just so gritty. Like late '80s, early '90s. Steven Seagal was the best Steven Seagal,
Wow.
and there's just some of his. I don't know. There's just something about those films that he starred in back in the day that was just so. It connected with me on such a
Yeah.
level because I knew people like that. Like, what was the movie where he was the undercover cop going? His name was Gino. He was going around New York City.
Zero idea.
Yeah, just that's a great movie, and Steven Seagal movies are great.
I've never
I don't
seen
know.
one. I have to check it out.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll send you a list later. There's definitely ones that you should stay away from, like the shit that he's putting out nowadays. Wouldn't go near that with a 10-foot pole. I don't know what the fuck happened to Steven, but he can't make a movie worth a shit nowadays. But back in the day, when he was first getting into film, there was a few gems definitely, and I think they're underrated. And I would love to talk about them sometime.
Oh, for sure, man. We will. And I have future plans on having you on a lot of podcasts as long as you're down with that. So, oh yeah, dude, that's it. So that's going to wrap up 47 Meters Down. And I feel like I should do the sequel with you for sure.
Yeah.
Plus, I kind of do want to rewatch it because I didn't hate it. And I feel like maybe if I watched it again, I might appreciate it more. I'm not sure, but we'll definitely get into that sometime. But for now, thank you for being on, my friend, and I will talk to you and everyone else later.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.